Bob came and asked me about this slide because he was like, did you mean to do that? I was like, yeah, I did. It took me a while to figure out how to do that. So as you know, there's talk series that I do that a lot of Science of Mind churches do across the country, as far as the titles and the books that we may use, and then the talk, we make our own. And so the talk title was supposed to be Fear and Punishment. And I was like, that didn't really speak to me. So this series is based on Living the Science of Mind, which is one of Ernest Holmes' textbooks, if you will. And he has a chapter in there called The Contagion of Fear. And I love that. I love the chapter. I love the title because I think it speaks to fear on a whole different level. Because sometimes we think fear, we kind of own it as something that's just us. We're fearful. And yet, we also believe here in this philosophy that our energy attracts to us who we are. Like when we're happy, we tend to attract happy people to us. And it's also energy that goes out, right? Regardless of whether we're happy, whether we're sad, it's energy that goes out. People can pick up on our energy, correct? Does everybody agree? Have you ever noticed that you can pick up on energy? You walk into a room, and if there's just been a fight in the room, regardless if everybody's sitting there and they've got those smiles on their face, you know those smiles. We're all happy here. The energy in the room, you know, oh yeah, something has happened in here. That's what he means by the contagion of fear. That fear is an energy that can take over, and we all start to buy into it. So I highly recommend, if for no other reason to buy that book, is to read that chapter. Because he also says that the counter to fear is faith. So I'm sure you have all heard, forget everything and run. That's fear. I've heard it with a little expletive. I've heard it with a nasty word at the front, but I will say forget everything and run. The opposite of that would be, hang on a minute, it just went out of my mind. Face everything and rise. Face everything and rise. So in the 1938 version of the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes said, someone has said that the entire world is suffering from one big fear. The fear that God will not answer our prayers. But what is fear? Nothing more nor less than the negative use of faith. Faith misplaced. A belief in two powers instead of one. A belief that there can be a power opposed to God, whose influence and ability may bring us evil. Fear is an energy, the misuse of faith, if you will. So I recently shared with a story. I don't know how many of you have a fear. I mean, there's different fears. David kind of touched on it a little bit when he said he stood up here and his heart was racing. That can be excitement. That can be fear. We have little fears, we have big fears. I used to have a really big fear about being alone in a house by myself. And I would have nightmares about it. So even if I was in a relationship, I would have nightmares that would put me in a house by myself. Now, to show you how our mind works, I would consider myself very bold and sometimes in your face. Did somebody say no? That was very kind of you. Thank you, Jim. And this was back when I was a kind of a different person. So this was when I was in my 30s. And I was driving home, and I got into, this will surprise no one, I got into a driving altercation with another driver. A driving altercation in the fact that, I don't know, maybe he cut me off. I don't remember the instance, but we were driving very fast, and he was tailgating me, then I was tailgating him. It was not pretty. It was so not pretty that I decided it was a good idea to just drive home and pull into my driveway as this person is on the tail end of my car, pulls in the driveway behind me. Now, senseless as I was at the time, I climbed out of the car and went right to his car and scared him, and he backed out and left. However, my husband, who was traveling at the time, when I told him the story, said something that put me right into terror. What do you mean you let a stranger drive to the house? So I'm by myself with my 2 kids, and the fear takes over. And it's the kind of fear that my logic mind wants to tell me this makes no sense. There's nothing to be afraid of. The doors are locked. You're safe. I was in a panic, an absolute terror panic. No matter what my brain told me, I could not. I was literally walking around my house with a butcher knife. I was so terrified. I called my mother, my mom and dad, who lived maybe 3 miles away. And I said, you have to come over here and stay with me. I was conscious enough to say, I have frightened myself into this panic. And she said, oh, Gayle, just get into the car and drive over here. Literally, from me to the door was my car. It would make perfect sense to most people. Just get in your car. And I literally said to her, I can't. I can't get out of the house. And so they came over and stayed with me. Have any of you had that kind of fear? No? Wow, David, thank you. Oh, there's some more back there. Yay. That's fear magnified, right? Because there is a part of us that knows in faith. There was a part of me that knew through that whole process, Gayle, stop it. You're okay. Just take a breath. Everything's fine. And I couldn't get there. I couldn't get there. That to me is terror fear. And yet we all have, I believe, fears every single day. Some of them are big, some of them are small. And what Ernest Holmes would say is when we have to start realizing, is that my fear? Or is that a fear that I am buying into because I have heard it from other people, other sources? Where people are feeding you information and it creates fear. And so, first of all, the thing with fear is to recognize, is this my fear? Do I really believe this is going to happen in my life? Or do I have faith that the universe is always for me and never against me? And sometimes the universe looks like it's against us, doesn't it? Individually, sometimes things go on in your life and you're like, wow, I didn't want to pull that card. And yet for me, what happens is when something happens and I think the universe is against me, I sit down and I have that discussion with Gayle. Let's run the tape. Let's go back and figure out where I was playing a part in drawing this into my life. What was my part of my side of the street, if you will? And so fear is one of those things that is part of our life, and yet I think, like everything else, it's a choice. And I am talking about the fears that we deal with on a day-to-day basis here. I am not talking about the fears that our military or our police department or our fire department, that the fears that they may sometimes have, because that's different. That is different. That's a job-related fear, and it's tangible and it's real. I am talking about those monkey mind fears, where your brain tells you, oh, you don't want to do that. What will people say if you do that? Have you ever had well-meaning family when you tell them you're going to do something and the first thing they say is, why would you do that? And they give you all of the reasons that doing that is going to be detrimental to you? It's like not real life affirming. But that feeds our fear, does it not? It feeds our fear. And so how do we stop fear? I love this English proverb. Fear knocked on the door. Faith answered. No one was there. Fear knocked on the door. Faith answered. No one was there. And so there are some steps that I would like to give you. I got it from a book by Dan Millman. And there are some steps that you can take to like navigating fear, if you will. Driving around all the speed bumps of life. So the first thing he said was you have to put both hands on the wheel. You have to be engaged. You have to realize that if you let fear stop you, you're not going to experience life. Fear is a force within you that says, that's worth having. I know that sounds odd, but it's true. The more you want something in your life, the more fearful you are going to be about the steps to take to make that happen. Because fear is that inner ego in us. Faith is that soul within us that already knows, that willing to say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. And so just to envision your life. If you have something that you desire to do, then envision what that would look like if you did it. What would it look like if you did the thing that your heart desires you to do? Because here's the thing. If you climb into a car and you don't have a roadmap of where to go, you're probably not going to ever start the car. What would be the point? I'm just going to drive around aimlessly until something happens that says, oh, go there. So we always know where we're going when we go on a trip, don't we? And your life is a journey, so why wouldn't you want to know or have some input into, this is my heart's desire. This is what I really want to do. A lot of you have that desire and you probably never shared it with another person. That's fear. Because, oh my goodness, if I speak it out loud, somebody might expect me to do it. If I speak it out loud, then it will become real. If I speak it out loud, somebody's probably going to tell me I shouldn't. So first of all, when you speak it out loud, make sure you're surrounded by people who love and support you and absolutely know. And here's the secret. I wouldn't make it family necessarily. And in a relationship, yes, I could tell my husband, this is what I want to do, and his first response would be, go for it. I'm talking about your family of origin, because they're used to protecting you. And when you take that first leap, they're going to be like, oh, no. Don't hurt yourself. Don't run. You might fall and scrape your knee. I don't want that to happen to you. So envision it. Visualize it. And then take the steps to make that happen. And it doesn't have to be big steps. I admit this, the leap and the net will appear girl. However, some of you aren't, and that's okay. Decide what your vision is, and then take baby steps. Maybe decide, I'll do one thing every day. Or maybe that's too much. I'll do one thing every month. I will do something that will shift my consciousness and take me closer to my goal. Because here is the thing about fear, or your ego, if you will. Because to me, I think they're kind of the same thing. Your ego is very comfortable in the life it's living right now. Even though you may not. And you may know that things have to change. And so what people will say to me sometimes is, well, will God stop me from doing this? And I'm like, nope. However, your ego will try. So when I say I want to be more patient, I want to be more patient in my life because I didn't get a lot of patience when I came down to planet Earth. So I want more patience in my life. You know what normally happens when I say that? Lots of things that make me test myself. Do I really have patience? I'll be standing in line at the grocery store, and it will clearly say that you're supposed to have 12 things in your basket, and the person in front of me has 30. Patience. Right? It'll just start to show up because my ego's saying, really? You want to practice patience? I'll give you patience. We're happy not having patience. Don't be shifting on me. Don't be changing up. I said shifting. Okay. I was like, that came out really quick. I better identify what I said. So just remember that when you set up a goal in your life, when you tell yourself, this is what I'm going to do, these are the steps I'm going to take, there may be things that are going to show up in your life to say, I don't think that's a really good idea. I'm going to put the brakes on right here and right now. And then you have to ask yourself, is this really important to me? Because if this is really important to me, you will push through that. And you'll start to change your reality, and your ego, your fear will catch up, and it'll find something new to be fearful about, I promise you. And so just know that you have control over fear as much as you have control over your faith. And so we're going to stop for a moment right here because they do something in Canada that really touched my heart. Every 11/11, and we're fortunate enough today that 11/11 is on a Sunday. So 11/11, exactly at 11 o'clock, which is just a heartbeat away, they hold 1 minute of 2 minutes of silence. So Kyle, what I'd like you to do is to time this and give me music when the 2 minutes is over. So we'll have total silence. So 2 minutes of silence to honor the end of World War I. Thank you. So it's 11. So if we'll all just take a breath, you can close your eyes if you choose, and we will be in silence. Thank you, Beth. And so let's pray. Mother, Father, God, Spirit, right here and right now, we just know that peace that passes all understanding. We know that it lives and breathes and has its existence in and through and as each and every one of us. That at the very core of who we are is that gentle breeze, that gentle place of knowing God in and through and as us. It always has been, it always will be, and it certainly is right here and right now. And so I claim that and know that for myself, as I know and claim that for everyone sitting here, that we claim that peace as our truth. And so what I know as we venture out into this week, we go forth with a peaceful heart. We remember that as we are looking out through the eyes of the divine are looking back at us. And so we claim that vibration. We own that as our truth right here and right now. And remember always that we are at choice. We can love or not. We can be peaceful or not. We can have courage or not. We can be confident or not. Let's choose together to know that truth, that God is all there is. It is that one definite, unchangeable force of good. And so I choose peace. I choose confidence. I choose love. I choose courage. I give thanks for this day. I give thanks especially to all who have served in all their capacities on this day of remembrance. I turn all of these words over knowing that as it is spoken, it is done. The universe has said yes, as it always does. So we simply let go as we let God, and together we say, and so it is. Amen.